And good morning. Welcome to the first morning of the regular season. First preview of the 2019-2020 season. Brand new board, brand new magnets, brand new markers that I just got. Fine tip markers, 12 red, 12 black. I'll be using them for the previews and the reviews. And I'm even using newish. So you'll notice there's 7 of every team. And that is, I think, the limit for goals. Now, people who've watched my previews over the last couple of years and my reviews will know that the NHL just ticked me off. You'll see teams score 8 or 9, especially in October, just to make it so that it's hard for me to make those all fit on that one small board. But those are the goal magnets. So every team gets the same amount. There's no weirdness. And we had to turn on the furnace yesterday, so if you hear motor in the background, furnace, because it's already getting cold. And if you live in Alberta, I know you got it a lot worse than we do. Okay, let's start things off with Ottawa and Toronto. The Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs will be playing at 7 o'clock Eastern. What I'm going to try to do with my previews this season is have your time, Eastern time, start times for every game. This one's 7 o'clock. And the records I pulled from Hockey Reference, and what they do is they separate overtime losses from shootout losses. So I thought that was interesting for today because we don't have records to go by right now. So we'll go by last year's. Last year, Ottawa 29-47, 5-1. The Toronto Maple Leafs 46-28, 6-2. On the road, Ottawa was 11-28, 1-1. Toronto was 23-16-2 at home. So Toronto had a rough start at home, and they went through some pretty rough patches. However, by the end of the year, pretty solid record. Power plays, Ottawa's was 20.4%. Actually, pretty good power play for Ottawa last year. Toronto 21.8%, but it did cool down as the season went along, and that's part of the reason they picked up Tyson Barrie. Penalty killing percent, 79.2% for Ottawa, 79.9% for Toronto. Both teams will look for an improvement in that area this year. Leading scorers. Now, what I did with this was, if a guy played split points, I'm only including the points they scored with that team. Shabbat would then be your leading scorer for Ottawa, 14 goals, 41 assists for 55 points. Chris Tierney, 9 goals, 39 assists, 48 points. And Brady Tkachuk, 22 goals, 23 assists, 45 points. Mitch Marner leads the way for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and hopefully he gets off to a good start and people can just focus on that. 26 goals, 68 assists, 94 points. John, I'm going to be the captain, but nobody's saying it until tonight, Tavares. 47 goals, 41 assists, 88 points, and they'll announce it today, now that I've said that, right? Austin Matthews, 37 goals, 36 assists, 73 points. And, of course, with Matthews, the big thing is staying healthy for the full season. If he can do so, he could score 50 goals, and it seems like it wouldn't be that hard for him. Starting goaltenders, I'm only going with what's likely. Craig Anderson's the only one that was confirmed last night when I made up this board. Freddie Anderson's going to be the starter for Toronto. It's the opening night game, so I'd be very surprised if we see a backup tonight. Stanley Cup odds. So the higher your number, and I think this is if you bet $100 right now how much money you'd make, the higher the number, the longer your odds, the less likely it is. For Ottawa, it's plus $20,000. For Toronto, it's plus $900. Toronto is favored in tonight's game by odds makers. October 2018, Ottawa went 4-5-2, whereas Toronto went 8-4 in October of last season. Ottawa won 3 out of 4 meetings between these teams last year, and they've kind of had their number in the preseason this year, so we'll see whether or not that continues. And, of course, we'll all be keeping an eye on Scott Sabourin. What kind of hijinks will he be up to tonight? And will Toronto fans be complaining about him at the end of this game or not? And what kind of things could happen? Because we've already seen with two teams that don't get along that things can start pretty early. And so Sabourin may have some words for Matthews, like, do you know my name now? We'll see. Moving along. Washington, the Capitals, who raised their 2018 banner, last year now get to watch St. Louis raise theirs, which should be a pretty good fire lit under them. The Capitals won 48 games last year, 26 losses, 7 overtime losses, and a shootout loss. St. Louis, 45 wins, 28 losses, 6 overtime losses, and 3 shootout losses. On the road, Washington went 24-15-2. At home, St. Louis went 24-15-1-1. Almost identical, right? Power play, close there too. Washington 20.8%, St. Louis 21.1%. Penalty kill, Washington notably below St. Louis there, 78.9% to the 81.5% St. Louis put up. Your leading scorers from last season, Ovechkin, 51 goals, 38 assists, 89 points for Washington. Backstrom, 22 goals, 52 assists, 74 points. And Kuznetsov, who of course is suspended for the first 3 games of the year, 21 goals, 51 assists, 72 points. On the St. Louis side, O'Reilly, 28 goals, 49 assists, 77 points, was their leading scorer last year. Tarasenko, 33 goals, 35 assists, 68 points. And Braden Shen, 17 goals, 37 assists, 54 points. And I've definitely taken some heat for the fact that I don't think St. Louis is necessarily going to be the best team in the league this year, but there is a Stanley Cup hangover. There is, Washington went through it last year, Pittsburgh went through it the year before. There's a point in the season where teams that won the Stanley Cup the year before, either through injury or fatigue, and it can be mental fatigue as well. They just have a down period of usually 15, 20 games where they're just having a hard time getting up for games. Holtby should be the starter. Binnington should be the starter. Your cup odds. The Capitals plus 2,000. Again, this is if you bet 100, I believe. St. Louis plus 1,500. October 2018, St. Louis went 3-4-3. Washington went 5-3-2. So St. Louis had a very slow start to the season. It is this 3-4-3 start that played a large role in them being the last overall team in the league in January of this past season. They really don't want to get off to that slow start again. St. Louis did win both meetings they had against the Washington Capitals this last season. So this should be a matchup between two teams that are highly motivated, very talented, and I think Holtby's being very, very, very underrated overall. I'm trying to think if it was the Hockey News or the NHL.com site that had him ranked as like the 17th or 18th best starter, and I'm thinking, whoa, wait a second. It was somewhere in that range, and I thought, no, I know he didn't have a great season statistically last year, but let's not throw him that far down the list. But anyways, moving along, and Vancouver's going to be in play in Edmonton. This was kind of a bit of a feud between fan bases last year, which felt weird. It was sort of like, both teams are kind of crap, so we should just stop picking on each other because it just looks kind of silly. And this game starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, of course, 8 p.m. Eastern here. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. I'm pretty sure I did. But anyways, 10 p.m. Eastern here. The Vancouver Canucks 35, 36, 5-6. So they lost 11 games in extra time last year. The Oilers 35, 38, 6-3. So when I start seeing the arguments about who's going to be better between Vancouver and Edmonton fans this year, I will probably just shake my head at that. On the road, Vancouver had trouble last year. 15, 22-4. The interesting thing with Vancouver was it was the East Coast swings that killed them. In Edmonton, at home, 18, 19, 2-2. Now we're going to see how many Oiler fans really actually meant, yeah, we're going to sit at home. We're not going to watch Edmonton games this year. We're not going to go. Remember, that was the talk this past summer, was that Oiler fans were sick of the losing, sick of missing playoffs, sick of rebuilding, and they were going to start voting with their wallet. We'll see if that happens this year or not. Power play, Vancouver's wasn't any good, 17.1%. You look at the moves that were made in the offseason to pick up JT Miller and Tyler Myers, and there's some belief that this is done to try to spur that a little bit. Oilers' power play was good, 21.2%. Penalty kill, Vancouver was pretty solid there, 81.1%. The Oilers, their penalty kill was miserable, 74.8%. And definitely moves were made by Ken Holland in the offseason to try to shore up that penalty kill. Part of the reason Sam Gagner didn't make the team is because he's not a penalty killer, and they know they need penalty killers. The scoring leaders for Vancouver, of course, Patterson, 28 goals, 38 assists, 66 points. Big expectations on this kid this year. Bo Horvat, 27 goals, 34 assists, 61 points. He will be named captain at Vancouver's opening night. Like I said yesterday, act surprised. Brock Besser, 26 goals, 30 assists, 56 points. Connor McDavid, of course, the leader for Edmonton, 41 goals, 75 assists, 116 points. Leon Draisaitl, 50 goals, 55 assists, 105 points. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 28 goals, 41 assists, 69 points. I expect Markstrom, and I put Koskinen up there for Edmonton because, oh, sure. But I don't know. Do you go with Smith? Do you go? I would think Koskinen. He's making a lot of money. Stanley Cup odds, Vancouver, you'd make $4,000 on 100. The Oilers, you'd make $3,300. So these are both long shots for the Stanley Cup this year, which will not be a surprise to anybody. Favored, the Oilers are favored like St. Louis was favored here. All of the home teams are favored today. And that's by odds makers, not by me. Odds makers. October 2018, Vancouver was 8-6. And in October of 2018, Edmonton was 6-4-1. They both got off to solid starts last year. And they split the season series. Both teams won 2 games in the matchups between them. So it was a close season series. And we'll see how things turn out starting tonight. But it should be a pretty fun game, I would think, to watch. And last up, the Vegas Golden Knights are at home against San Jose, which all of us knew. And at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, some people are going to be staying up late on a school night to watch this, I would think. 46-27, 6-3 was the record for San Jose. 43-32 or 43-32, 5-2 was the record for Vegas. Vegas's record honestly wasn't great last year. They ended up finishing 16th overall, but they added Mark Stone, and having Stone, Pacioretty, and Stastny on one line, and Carlson, Marchessault, and Smith on another. It's a pretty solid top 6. On the road, San Jose was 21-16, 3-1 last year. At home, Vegas was 24-12, 3-2. And of course, what you can't escape is these teams met in the playoffs, and it had a little bit of a controversial ending if you hadn't heard. Power play, San Jose's was amazing last year at 23.7%, whereas Vegas struggled on the power play, 16.8%. Stone may help there this year. Penalty kill, very, very close between these two. 80.8% for San Jose, 80.9% for Vegas. Brent Burns was your leading scorer for San Jose, 16 goals, 67 assists, 83 points. Tomas Hertl, 35 goals, 39 assists, 74 points. And Logan Couture, 27 goals, 43 assists, 70 points. The fun thing about Hertl is how he takes the faceoffs. That's the fun thing with him. Vegas, Marchessault, 25 goals, 34 assists, 59 points. Carlson, 24 goals, 32 assists, 56 points. And Smith, 19 goals, 34 assists, 53 points. Your 3 top scorers for Vegas. I don't have Stone on the board. Everybody knows Stone's there. Just Stone scored most of his points with Ottawa. Wouldn't qualify. Yeah, anyways. Just a different way of doing it for today. I will likely mess around with stats when I do previews from here going forward and change it up regularly. Jones and Fleury, I expect to be the starters. Watch Jones early. See if he gets off to a good start. If he gets off to a good start, things are going well. If Jones struggles, it could be a long night for San Jose. Stanley Cup odds. San Jose, you'd make $1,800 on a Stanley Cup wager of $100 on them. And $1,000 on Vegas. Vegas is number 3 on the board behind Tampa and Toronto. Yeah, Toronto is number 2 in Stanley Cup odds right now. That tells me Maple Leaf fans probably are betting on Toronto a lot. And I'm not saying that as any kind of shade towards Toronto. It's just Toronto isn't really considered to be the second best Stanley Cup odds. When you talk to fans and you ask them who do you think is going to win, Toronto isn't the second name that comes up. You'll hear Tampa Bay definitely at number 1, but from there it gets kind of all over the place. Vegas does get mentioned a lot, though. Records in October, San Jose was 6-3-3. They were not very good last year to start the season. Vegas wasn't either. 5-6-1. Remember, you guys are supposed to be an expansion team. Your expansion year, not year 2. They had a miserable couple of weeks there. These teams both won 2 games in this matchup last year. I expect a pretty good one this year as well. Of course, Evander Kane is suspended for this game. We'll see if that takes some of the bite out of it. I doubt it. We'll see if San Jose brings Jeff Odgers out of retirement or what they might do. And maybe link Gates. No, can't do that. Yeah. So there you go. We're all set for tonight. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video, and hey, it's night one. Get excited because it's night one. I will talk to you again soon.